What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA strategy show presented by No House Advantage. Welcome back from the weekend, kind of. No games yesterday. Had a couple of people asking us if there were going to be shows, but I think you know why there weren't. It was nice to have a day off, though. I'll tell you that much. Anyway, I'm Dave Loughran at Lofty_D on the Twitters, on the social medias, joined by Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS. Nice to have a day off, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really nice to have a day off. It was semi-nice weather-wise here, so I actually got outside for a little bit. It was nice, but now it's also going to throw me off the rest of the week because I have absolutely no idea what day it is every time I think about it.
Well, it's nice, though, because it feels like Monday, but it actually isn't.
Yeah. So it's a 4.5-day work week instead of 5.
I had a good day, man. I mean, it's never do I just have the whole day off by myself. If I'm off, which is Saturdays, you know, my wife sometimes works Saturdays, so I'd be home with Jordan, and she's 13 months. That's not exactly like an easy day, you know, or they're both home. We're all home, and you're not really relaxing. So yesterday, got up, poured some coffee. Jordan went off to daycare. I watched 3:10 to Yuma. You wouldn't like that because it's a Western, but it's sick. Christian Bale, Russell Crowe.
I do like Christian Bale.
Yeah, and Russell Crowe, I mean, he's fantastic too. Got a good workout in, took the dog for a 2.5-mile walk, and then actually got stuff done that I haven't been able to get done for a while. So I even cooked dinner, Adam. How about that? This guy cooking dinner for the family yesterday too. It's a big win.
Nice. Yeah, sounds like a good day. I had like half the day. I worked out. I went for a walk, not quite as far. Still didn't clean, which was on my list of things to do, but downloaded the new MLB The Show PlayStation game. So started playing that instead of cleaning.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that actually sounds smart. You can clean anytime. Plus,
paid like $25 extra just to get it one day earlier.
When's the last time you cleaned anyway, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, but I need to pick up. Like, it's gotten bad. Normally my apartment's like messy, but not like overboard. Right now it looks like shit.
Just bring someone in.
Yeah, but like it would be embarrassing right now. Like I would need. I'll bring somebody in to clean. I'm not bringing somebody in to pick up after me.
Oh yeah, right. That's a little bit different.
Yeah,
we were hiring people for a while, like when Justine was on maternity leave and stuff, because God knows I wasn't doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll for sure hire somebody before I move out because I'm not deep cleaning this place by myself.
No, you gotta get that security deposit back too.
Yeah, well, my dumbass gave them a cashier's check for that, so it's kind of just like the money had stopped existing.
Oh. All right. Anyway, let's dive at 12. This April basketball is out of control. I mean, at this point, you know, we still have a lot to talk about. Happy to have you guys with us too. If you're joining us throughout the rest of the regular season and into the playoffs, well, you're here for it. So are we. So in the meantime, hit that thumbs up, because what else are you going to do? Only takes a second. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. And of course, if you want to join, hit that join down below. Free super chats each month, the custom emojis, sweet badges that you see in chat. Any iced? No, nobody iced out yet today. They'll be here. Oh, there's Jordan. There he is. And we'll always prioritize your questions along with our and comments along with our premium Discord members. But I mean, these 12-game slates at this point, Adam, you're laying the groundwork. You're trying to set a bit of a foundation here, but there's no doubt that it's difficult with huge slates and a ton of unknowns going into something like this.
Yeah, just so much unknown stuff, a lot of questionable guys, and we have gotten some news as far as guys ruled out. I appreciate Pop playing the bullshit game with DeJounte Murray yesterday instead of today, where he says Murray's going to play on Tuesday, and then like 30 minutes later, they're like, Murray's not playing. It was nice to get that out of the way, I guess. But yeah, like somebody had said in chat the other day, like, why do we bother doing a 10 a.m. show for NBA? And obviously this time of year, it does become a little bit less useful because there's just more moving parts. But, you know, obviously still can get some general idea of what we're looking at with these teams.
For sure. And I mean, standings, we don't give a shit about standings early in the year. At this point, you have to be paying attention to some of that stuff, like which teams actually have mobility in the conference in seeding, which teams actually the seeding matter, and which teams are just locked in. So there are a lot of teams right now, at least a decent number of teams that are locked in. We'll see how it goes. We just saw the Grizzlies, rest a ton of players a few days ago. the East is still kind of up for grabs. But at this point, I honestly do wonder, if you're the Bucks or the Sixers, are you just fine sitting at the 3 or 4 seed? Or because the Nets are what? The Nets are they've lost 2 straight, by the way, but they're still locked into the play-in game. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about that. My assumption this whole time has been that teams at the top of the East aren't going to actively avoid being the 1 or the 2, but that they're probably just going to prioritize having everyone healthy, having everyone rested.
Right.
So if they're in a situation where it's like, oh, well, we need to win this game, but also we really wanted to rest, Jason Tatum today, I think they're just going to err on the side of resting.
Exactly. Yeah. And look, let's be completely honest. There is less incentive this year. To finishing as the 2 seed, right? I mean, like if we're being completely honest about this, you don't, or the 1, depending on where the Nets finish, you don't. It's not like you're getting a guaranteed matchup against the Knicks or the Wizards or the Hawks or whoever it was. I mean, I know the Hawks went far last year, but you know what I mean. The Nets are legitimately, when healthy, one of the teams that are sitting up in the top 3, top 4 seeds this year. So it is definitely a different dynamic.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Last year, what was the one last year? Was it the Lakers that got in as a low seed and then had to face Phoenix?
Yeah,
I
think.
Yeah, and then AD was remember AD was hurt. He was playing hurt, and it was just like a shell of himself. But I think the Lakers won that first game. I thought they won it handily. I can't remember. Anyway, besides the point,
I don't remember.
I think they did. Because there were a lot of people, Lakers fans out there like, oh, if AD was healthy, they win that.
Including Anthony Davis this year.
Oh, he did say that. Yeah, that was unwise.
Yeah, Devin Booker just laughed at him.
It's possible that they meet each other in the first round, right?
That would require the Lakers making the playoffs.
That's why I said it's possible.
Yeah, but it's getting really unlikely.
They're 2 games back. They have 4 games to go. So do the Spurs. Man, they might miss it.
Yeah.
Ooh, they've lost 6 straight. God, what a disaster. Let's get into this. Philly, Indiana, another Indy team that has some questionables today. Many of them likely to sit because they have no incentive to win. Philly is just completely healthy across the board. They're 11.5-point favorites here. It is a very good matchup, and Joel Embiid has just been purely dominant. The only difference now is with 12 games, how do you prioritize him? Like, do you put him over Jokic, who has a spectacular matchup against San Antonio? Both of these guys north of 12K. I still think Embiid for tournaments, if he's really going to come in at like low double digits, just with how dominant he's been in another great matchup for himself, is viable. But I don't see there any way that he ends up being like legit chalk today unless Harden rests.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many good options today. It should keep overall ownership down, but ridiculously good spot for Embiid here going up against this Pacers team that is essentially a G League squad, and Embiid should just do whatever he wants against this front court. So love getting to him wherever I can. Obviously, like you were saying, you have Jokic in a good spot against San Antonio. You have plenty of other options to pay up for as well. There should be plenty of value on this slate, so I don't think it's going to be difficult getting to the pay up options. It's just a matter of there's a ton of them. I mean, you have Brooklyn playing Houston as well, so really good spot there. Just a lot of guys that you can pay for on this slate, but Embiid certainly towards the top of the list for me.
Yeah, and Embiid has a 33.5 points prop today, juiced to the over. So, I mean, that's just crazy. The difference, though, with the team like this is outside of Joel Embiid, how do you get to anyone outside of maybe a little bit of Harden?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of Harden. You're still expecting him to play around 38 minutes. Obviously, he takes a back seat to Embiid, but he's still capable of going out there and giving you those massive games. But like Maxey and Harris, I think if this slate were smaller, you can make a case just because it is a really good matchup. They're not that expensive, given basically they're priced at a point where if they produce at their average rates, you're not going to be really happy that you played them, but they're cheap enough where given that Maxey's likely to play 37 or 38 minutes if this game's competitive, Harris is likely to play 36. It's not that crazy to think that one of them could just destroy their price tag in any individual game, especially against Indiana. But on a slate of this size, I think you're just going to find so many options that look better.
On Indy, we're just assuming that Brogdon is out, right?
Yeah.
At this point?
Yeah.
Questionable every day, but we assume he's out. Goga Batadze is questionable for this one. And he's been questionable for every game, but he keeps playing. So I guess if we're just going to consider him in and Brogdon out, there's that. Also, TJ McConnell's questionable. Hasn't played since December 1st with that wrist, but here's McConnell. What happens if McConnell actually plays today? I think it just makes this team almost completely it's a wrist injury. I know he hasn't played in a while, but if McConnell comes in and plays like 25 minutes, I guess you could just have one of these other, lesser tier guys in the rotation just not get minutes at all. But I don't know. Does it throw a wrench into the works, or do we just not like Indy?
I mean, it would be pretty bizarre, I think, if McConnell plays, but he is questionable, like you said.
But why even rule him questionable at this point? Like, why not just?
I don't know. The same reason they're making Brogdon questionable every day, even though he's probably already in the Bahamas or something. Yeah, I mean, this team's pretty tough on a slate of this size. Like, you can certainly get to somebody healed at 6,600, given he's playing a ton of minutes. Terry Taylor at 4,400 looks fine. If Goga were to miss, he would obviously look better. But and if Goga misses, $5,300 Jalen Smith looks okay as well. Jalen Smith's playing time has been down a bit recently with Goga in, though. Like, we had seen Smith getting around 28 to 30 minutes for a while, kind of regardless of who was in. Now, even last game where Goga played 8 minutes and didn't play at all in the second half, Jalen Smith still only got to 21 minutes. Isaiah Jackson only played 23. You had Terry Taylor start and play 33. So it was still just kind of an unappealing rotation overall from Indiana. Brissett being back obviously cut into their playing time a little bit. So I don't think there's really priorities here. I think that getting to a little bit of Hield, a little bit of Taylor is fine. If Brissett or if Batadze is out, then maybe a little bit of Jalen Smith or Isaiah Jackson as well, but just nothing that really looks that great to me.
Okay. Let's talk about Cleveland and Orlando then. You have Cleveland without Mobley, and Jared Allen is out, right? I thought he was confirmed out on the injury report. Let me see. Yeah, this morning's injury report has him out. So just making sure there. Obviously, he hasn't been playing, but they come into Orlando as 8.5-point favorites. It's pretty much par for the course at this point with them. And we'll get to Cleveland. We'll get to Orlando in a second. They actually have a few interesting spots with a bunch of questionable guys, but is Moses Brown at a point where we still get there? And are any of these guys priced at a point on a 12-game slate against Orlando where we want to target them?
I mean, it's a good matchup. Prices certainly have adjusted a bit. $5,700 $4,800 for Moses Brown, I think still looks pretty good. His playing time has just been better than I expected. Like, even in that game where he played 26 minutes, I think it was like his first start. It was garbage run at the end. So I kind of thought that you were just get like 20 to 22 minutes from Brown and then, different lineups to close. But he's legitimately been playing a lot of minutes. In the game against the Knicks, you got 30 minutes, and that didn't include run down the stretch of an 18-point game. He's a good point per minute guy, over a fantasy point per minute. So I think 4,800 still looks good for Brown. On DraftKings, you also just got a decreasing salary on Lauri Markkanen to 5,500. That makes him, I think, look pretty reasonable, expecting him to play 34 to 35 minutes. Garland and LeVert, Garland's price came down a little bit. I think these guys all just look pretty good. Like, Moses Brown, I think, looks the best. Markkanen second, but this is the first time in a while where I felt like you can get to Garland a little bit. LeVert at 7K, I think, is still reasonable as well.
What about with Orlando, where you've got Wendell Carter Jr. out, and then you've got a bunch of questionable players too? Suggs, Cole Anthony, Franz Wagner is also questionable. So I guess we can start with Mo Wagner here, getting a lot of ownership right now, but he's played, 18 and 27 and 29 minutes over his last 2 games. How many minutes do you give him today? For Mo Wagner?
I think it's tough because there has been some garbage time in those games, but also you get Orlando just, also not really carrying down the stretch. So down the stretch of games. So he can find more minutes that way as well. In that last game, he played all of the fourth quarter, got him up to 28 minutes. He had played about 11 minutes in the first half. So I think it's just kind of a situation where you're talking about 11 or 22 to 28 minutes for Wagner. At 4,200, that volatility I think is pretty nice. On a slate of this size, you're not going to prioritize him because there's just going to be other guys that look better. But in tournaments, you should be able to get him at low ownership and certainly with a high ceiling.
I would now at this point, it's hard to even speculate, but I do think this is one of these teams where we have to keep an eye on who's in and out, right? If Suggs ends up remaining out, he's been out for a while. If Cole Anthony's out, if Franz Wagner's out, I mean, that's 80% of your normal starting lineup, right? So then you have to look at Orlando for value, even if you don't want to. But my question would then be like, does Markelle Fultz, is there any point of giving Markelle Fultz additional minutes? I think at his price point, he would still be more than reasonable with Anthony out, obviously, but I don't think you can just project him for starter minutes.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, last game, Anthony got hurt 2 minutes and 38 seconds into the game. You still got 22 minutes from Markelle Fultz. Mm-hmm. I just don't expect them to be ramping him up for absolutely no reason. I think he just kind of lives where he's at right now, which again, on some slates would be somewhat appealing. Not on this one, I don't think. You're probably just looking at, more
Devin Kennedy.
It's kind of difficult to say right now because you also have Suggs questionable. You also have Franz Wagner questionable. But like if Anthony is out and Suggs, Wagner are in, you're looking at more usage for those guys. If all three are out, then this team just becomes an absolute dumpster fire that we'll talk about later. But yeah, just a lot of moving pieces right now.
Right. Like they probably didn't Kennedy start the second half?
If I remember correctly, yeah.
Yeah, I think he did.
He ended up playing 30 minutes and started the second half.
Yeah.
But like Terrence Ross got to 24 minutes in that game. You had Chuma Okeke only play 20 minutes despite starting. So like that's somebody that could potentially play more. Basically, he just didn't play any minutes alongside Mo Wagner. If this team gets more shorthanded, though, you could certainly see Wagner playing minutes alongside Okeke and, Okeke getting more run as well.
Dude, I'd take 24 minutes from Ross at minimum salary over 30 minutes from any of the other minimum salary guys, probably just because he chucks. But
yeah, but does he? Like, he does, but I'm not.
That is a fair point. Yeah, it is definitely different than it was before in terms of usage. But if you're without like Wagner, if you're without Cole Anthony and Suggs, his usage still has to come up. But yeah, you're right. He's not. No, listen, you're right. He's not the same type of guy that in 24 minutes would take like 18 shots some nights. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, he for the season, he's at 19.5% usage. If you take off Suggs and Anthony, he gets to 23.7%.
Which is still good at minimum salary.
Oh, yeah. That by itself would be fine. Taking off Wendell Carter Jr., you get 23.8%. We're probably going to start running out of minutes. But if you take off Franz Wagner, Ross gets up to still 23.5%. So, to your point, like if guys get ruled out, you can expect Ross to play, to get around 23, 24% usage. It's just like if Anthony is in, even if you tell me Ross is playing 24 minutes, I'm not going to be super excited.
All right. So Houston and Brooklyn, 17-point spread, man. 17 points, 244 total. Obviously, with Houston, you've got Christian Wood out for the year, Schroeder out, Eric Gordon, all of those guys out. So we have a pretty good idea of what we're getting here. And Şengün's coming off a 33-minute game where shot volume wasn't high, but this guy can produce kind of across the board, which is the type of player we're looking for. That in mind, though, or with that said, you're getting these guys priced now to a point, again, and this is just going to be a reoccurring theme, where with all of these guys being ruled out for the season a week ago, now all of these guys are going to start seeing their prices mirror that or reflect that. So like Kevin Porter's above, he's 8,300 now. Jalen Green's been balling. Dude's just ripping off 7 threes per game, but he's up almost 7,500. And then Şengün's at 6,700. So while I think it's a great atmosphere, a high scoring, fast paced game with a 244 total and Christian Wood and all these other guys out, it's really hard to justify paying a premium for any of these guys right now.
Yeah, especially on a slate of this size where you're just going to have teams that are more mispriced because of more recent news. it's not to say you can't get to them in tournaments. Like looking at the boom bust tool on DraftKings right now, only 8% ownership coming into Şengün, about a 5.5% chance of being optimal. 4% ownership on Porter with about a 3% chance of being optimal. Josh Christopher around 5 to 6% in both categories. Garrison Matthews around 9% in both categories. It's certainly a team you can look to and say, all right, well, they're not getting much ownership. There's still a path to success for these guys. But yeah, like prices have come up. And one thing I mentioned previously as well, with Kevin Porter Jr. In particular, is that I think there's a tendency to view him as a lot better whenever Christian Wood doesn't play. But to me, Şengün makes a huge difference there because when Wood and Şengün aren't playing, you're replacing that usage with guys like Garuba and Bruno Fernando that are just basically non-factors offensively. If you're just replacing Christian Wood's minutes with Şengün's minutes, that's not any sort of real bump to Kevin Porter Jr. because you're still talking about a 23.5% usage guy that can also facilitate a bit. You're just kind of looking at the same situation. So with Şengün back in, I don't really think the price tag or the price increase on Porter is all that justified.
The big thing with Porter lately is obviously he's scoring a lot, but his assist rate has been through the roof.
Yeah.
Or I don't even know if it's his assist rate. I'd have to look. His raw assists are high because he's playing a ton of minutes too. But yeah, he's producing excellent numbers. He really is. Like he's been fantastic. It's just a matter of whether or not you want to pay that much for him. I mean, God, he's been really good lately from a fantasy standpoint.
Yeah, I just don't think I don't know. I don't know. The playing time increase for sure is legitimate, but I'm just not entirely sure that outside of the playing time increase that we really should expect his production to increase all that much because Şengün is basically Christian Wood from a rate standpoint.
Yeah, no, sure. I'm not taking that away from it. I'm just saying he's actually. I was just looking at it now, and he's better than I thought he had been lately. Is what I'm saying. 1.44 DraftKings points per minute over his last 5, which is nuts.
A couple of those didn't have Şengün though.
Yeah, no. Again, I'm not discrediting it. I'm just saying I can see why he is priced where he is. Not even if he's not worth that with Şengün back.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Brooklyn, huge favorites, 17-point home favorites. How do you approach Kevin Durant, who's almost 12K now?
I think this spot's kind of tricky, and a lot's going to depend on ownership here because this is obviously a phenomenal matchup for Brooklyn. There is, of course, blowout risk, but there's also blowout risk for Philadelphia, for Embiid facing Indiana. So I don't think you should weigh that too heavily. But right now we have Kevin Durant projected for 6% ownership, 8% chance of being in the optimal lineup. If this game is competitive, if Houston hangs in this game, and let's not act like Brooklyn is some phenomenal team that it's impossible for Houston to hang, you're going to get 38 to 40 minutes from Kevin Durant. And he's averaged around 1.4 DraftKings points per minute in the games he's played with Kyrie and without Harden this year. But he's just so capable of taking over any given game as well. Like you're still talking about one of the best players in the NBA at 6% ownership facing the Houston Rockets. If that ownership stays that low, I'll be really interested. If it comes back up to a point where, it's similar to Embiid or Jokic or those guys, then I'm going to start preferring them, even given that, they're center eligible, so a little bit more difficult to get to. But the way things look right now, I'm really interested in Durant.
Okay.
And
Byron says Green.
Kyrie.
What'd you say?
And to a lesser extent, Kyrie, but really.
Yeah. Byron said, Green has 4 consecutive 30-point games. I think I'll have to play him tonight in the lineup or two. One thing I've been doing with Green is I've been hitting the over on his 3-point props lately and his points props. His scoring props at 23.5 today, so it's a bit higher than it's been. But yeah, he's been crushing those daily. His usage is up. His minutes are through the roof. I don't know what it looks like in a blowout, but yeah, no, look, they've been producing whether they're good or not. Do you have anything else you want to hit on for Brooklyn?
So to kind of piggyback on the Jalen Green thing, I agree with you. I almost feel like it's better to be going to like bets there than DraftKings because like he's up to 7,400. So like, can he beat that? Sure, but
bets
I'm still
are
pretty
binary.
hesitant. Yeah, I'm still pretty hesitant to think that he's going to be like one of the best plays in that price range. Whereas if you can just bet overs, then that makes more sense to me.
And like an over under, like a points prop is binary. He hits it or he doesn't. Like he could go for 25 points and 2 rebounds and be horrible at 7,400, but he still hits that prop, right? Like that's
right. Yeah, and like he could have a good game even at 7,400. He can do well, but like he could still just end up being useless on a
12-game slate.
Right.
Yeah,
like that's
exactly.
I remember, I don't remember who it was in chat, but somebody had like there was like Jordan Poole or something a couple weeks ago. They were like, "Oh, you need to lock him," and we were kind of just like, "Yeah, whatever. He's like irrelevant." And then he scores like 42 points, and they're like victory lapping the next day, and it was like, "Yeah, but he was the 5th best guy at his price tag." So it's all relative. It's not just like in DFS. It's not, oh, if they hit a number, you win, like it is in
right.
points props. So,
exactly. And betting's interesting because it doesn't matter if Jalen Green has a scoring a points prop of 23.5. It doesn't matter if he hits 24 or 40. Like you don't get more money if he hits 40. You don't get less if he hits 24.
Right. As far as the rest of Brooklyn goes, not a ton that stands out. I mean, if you end up with some Drummond, Bruce Brown, Nick Claxton, those are all fine. Again, it should just be a very, very appealing game from a fantasy standpoint, but I don't think any of them really look like priorities. But none of them are really getting ownership either. Bruce Brown leads the way at 12%. Claxton's coming in at 9%. Beyond that, there's just like nobody getting ownership here.
All right, let's keep it moving then. Who's up next? Charlotte, Miami. Charlotte Hornets 5.5-point dogs against the Miami Heat. I just can't. I can't fathom getting a lot of anyone from Charlotte today. Not just because of their price points and because Gordon Hayward's also back now. Not to say that he's gonna, be a massive factor here, being sidelined for as long as he was. Played only 17 minutes last game, but the matchup sucks too for Charlotte.
Yeah, and it's just like a correctly priced team. Like obviously guys like LaMelo and Bridges and Rozier are capable of doing well, but they just don't stand out today.
I think we should just talk about Miami then.
Yeah, I agree.
Not to say we're going to spend a ton of time here, but a bunch of questionable players. So, who's questionable? PJ Tucker, Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin, Kyle Lowry's questionable too. So this could be a potential rest spot for him. I don't know. This is a very good matchup for bigs, particularly Bam Adebayo's sub 8K. Do you think this is a strong spot for him, even though Miami hasn't been a team we've been targeting frequently when they're fully healthy?
Yeah, I think it's a good spot, just given that it's a matchup against Charlotte. The price tag has come down a little bit. The only thing sort of working against him on DraftKings is that he is center only, and you have Embiid, you have Jokic, you have plenty of other guys that we're going to talk about. But yeah, I do think he's just a little bit underpriced for this spot. Same can be said about Butler at 8,400, Lowry at 6K if he plays. But in particular, I think Bam at that price looks good.
Anybody else for Miami? And again, for those of you guys wondering, we're not just trying to breeze through this, but certain games just aren't as appealing. And when you have 12 games, there's no point of spending a ton of time on certain spots.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I have for Miami.
All right. So let's keep going then. Before we do, though, No House Advantage. Shout out to No House Advantage. Jordan, throw it on the screen, baby. In case you guys haven't checked out No House Advantage yet, they're bringing you an entirely new and unique way to enjoy playing DFS, right? With player props. You might say that's not DFS. Well, here's how it works. You got 100% peer-to-peer player prop format, levels the playing field. You have over 500 props offered. And the way it works is you're building lineups. So there's no salary cap, but you're taking props. No juice on the over or the under. You're just taking the over or the under on that number, right? If it hits, over or under, you win in that lineup. But it's like, say, on DraftKings where you have 8 players in a lineup with a $50,000 salary cap. There's no salary cap here, but you put the ones that you're most confident in at the top of the lineup. They get the most points. Similarly, the ones at the bottom get the fewest points, the ones you're least confident in. Big tournaments over there. There's mass entry capability, big prize pools. And you can use all of the tools that we have over at Awesemo.com. They're free every single day of the week, 365 days a year. The No House Advantage projections, the optimal lineup tool. You can use Odds Shopper. You can use the player prop tool to compare it against the props they have over there. And those are static props at No House Advantage. They don't change. So you're going to find some real advantages, some significant edges, just taking the time to compare our projections, again, free, against the props that they have over there and build your lineups out and win some money. You can go to nohouseadvantage.com. You can go to the App Store, Google Play Store, download the app, but make sure to use the promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO, when you sign up, because everyone, all new users, when they sign up and deposit, get $25 deposit bonus their first time signing up onto the site. So check it out, nohouseadvantage.com, sponsor of the Strategy Show. All right.
One thing I saw it in chat, and I think it's worth mentioning. Somebody asked about Oladipo because he played like 28 minutes last game. PJ Tucker and Jimmy Butler and Gabe Vincent were out in that game. Typically, when they're healthy, Oladipo's been a DNP. So, and he's not exactly cheap. So you need multiple guys on Miami to be out. And right now, Jimmy Butler's not even on the injury report. So, like, maybe if you get Lowry, Martin, Tucker out, you could think about Oladipo. But even then, it's difficult on this slate, given that he's not exactly cheap.
Let's talk about Atlanta and Toronto here. The Atlanta Hawks, what's the spread in this game? 4.
Like 4?
Yeah, 4-point dogs, 226.5 total. So Atlanta, where are they in the standings? I'm just curious. So Atlanta in the standings right now, they're 8th, right? They're also 1 game up on the Nets, 1 game up on the Hornets, who are 7-3 over their last 10. So once again, play-in game, there's no way that the Hawks aren't getting into a playoff game or a play-in game, but it is possible that they drop to the 9 or 10 seed. I guess there would be some incentive to try and hang around in that 8th seed, right, Adam, to get that potential lock up the potential 7 seed instead of the 8th. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, being 7 or 8 is huge compared to 9 or 10.
So let's talk about them then. You got Atlanta on the road. I think it's an important game. I just don't know exactly where we're headed here. Like Trae Young at that price point, I think it's justifiable, but among all of the high priced options on this slate, and there's a ton of them, even with DeJounte Murray and Morant and all these guys out, there's still a lot of really good top tier options. It's going to be tough to get to anybody here.
Yeah. Like it's just another team where, I expect Trae Young to play a lot of minutes. He's around the 1.5 fantasy point per minute guy without John Collins. All of that looks good. If Bogdanovich is out, then Young looks a little bit better, but he's still at this point, he's priced for John Collins to be out. You're not getting, a $9,500 or $9,800 Trae Young anymore. So it's just difficult to prioritize him. Use him here and there in tournaments. He certainly can go for 60 plus, but just, his price is adjusted.
There's still, and I guess it's worth pointing out too that Danilo Gallinari and Bogdan Bogdanovich are still questionable, right? So
yeah,
I have no idea if they play. My assumption is they do, but maybe that changes some things. I can't imagine it would even change that much, would it?
If Bogdanovich is, it opens up minutes for guys, obviously. Like if they're both
just
out,
one and not both are out, I meant. Sorry.
Oh, right. Yeah. Like if Bogdanovich is out, you're getting more production for Young. If Gallo's out, it really doesn't matter for him. Luau Cabarrot once again, Luau Cabarrot started the last game. He played 22 minutes. Gallo played 25 off the bench. Like you would probably get a few more minutes from TLC if Gallo's out, but that's not a huge deal anyway. So yeah, if only one is out, I don't expect it to matter too much. Also, for what it's worth, we just got Seth Curry ruled out for the Nets.
Yeah. Does that do anything significant for you?
Not really. It should open up more minutes for some combination of Patty Mills and Cam Thomas in a good matchup, but the issue is that Patty Mills is still absolutely awful. Cam Thomas is better from a fantasy standpoint, but you also have to keep in mind that you have Bruce Brown back. So like last game, if you look at the minutes from last game, you didn't have Brown, you didn't have Curry, and you didn't have Dragic. Now you should just only not have Dragic and Curry. So more minutes for Mills, probably more minutes for Thomas, but I don't think it really moves either of them into being a priority.
On the Toronto,
Bruce Brown's minutes.
Okay. On the Toronto side, excuse me, OG Anunoby is questionable, and we saw him scratch last game, but it doesn't do anything at least it doesn't do anything big in terms of like backup minutes. We saw this last game, okay, against Miami. You saw Trent play 43 minutes. You saw Siakam play 43. Van Vliet played 41. Kem Birch started but played 13. Scotty Barnes played 35. And then you did see you saw a 9-man rotation, but it's like Achua gets 20, Boucher gets 22, Armani Brooks gets 5, Thaddeus Young gets 18. All of those guys at this point, I'm not really sure how you could make any sense of that. I know ownership is low on Toronto, but it is, and this is, I'm very curious to know where you're at here. It is a good matchup against a bad, generally speaking, bad Atlanta defense. And if these guys are legitimately to close out the season under Nick Nurse, who swore to get them less minutes, playing 40, 42, 43 minutes for guys like Siakam and Trent and Van Vliet, that's a ton of minutes against a pretty bad defense.
Yeah. I was confused what they're talking about in chat, but I figured it out. Yeah, it's one of those spots where I think that Toronto is priced cheap enough where you'll get to them sort of across the board in some tournament lineups. Siakam here, Van Vliet there, a little bit of Anunoby, assuming he plays, a little bit of Trent. But I don't think there's any one of them that really stands out as a top tier option relative to, the other plays on the site or the other options on the slate. So, yeah, like I like the spot for Toronto. I think that across the board, they're a little bit underpriced. They're just more so still secondary plays. And I think that's reflected too. Like nobody on this team right now is projected for more than 10% ownership on DraftKings.
Right.
Trent leading the way, followed by Siakam, Van Vliet. Like you said, really low ownership projection on Anunoby right now since he's questionable. But all of those guys just look like relatively low probability plays who are probably a little bit underpriced.
If OG Anunoby plays, I don't know. I feel like at this point it's really tough to say, but it's a shame it's a shame we can't get to these guys with any frequency when they're playing this many minutes. But I guess you're right.
I mean, the thing is, they've been playing this. Well, I mean, not necessarily 40 plus, but like they've been playing a ton of minutes all season long. So
sure.
it's not like you're looking at a team. You will get some teams down the stretch, and I think we've already started to see it to some extent where. For a lot of, they're priced to play 35, 36 minutes, and now you can actually expect 38 to 40. With Toronto, they're priced to play 38 already.
No doubt. Yeah, no. It's just, it is nuts that, I would not be shocked in some of these games if you see Siakam playing like 45 minutes.
Right.
All right, let's go to Milwaukee and Chicago then. We have free content on the site too. Some good stuff today. NBA player projections, PGA golfer projections, NHL ownership projections, all of that stuff, totally free. You don't need an account. But if you want to sign up, you want to get in on the action, awesemo.com/join. Check it out, man. You could do essentially however you want to do it. I will say this too. If like you're looking to get in on a cheaper one, like the Express Pass for NBA, all of our showdown tools are included in that as well. And you're going to have a ton of showdown stuff coming up. Big showdown contest coming up with the playoffs beginning. But yeah, if you want to do one sport, all sports, whatever, golf, football, basketball, baseball coming back this week, PGA, MMA, East, whatever it is, we got it all. They have contests out there. We got content for it. We have tools for all of them, all of the tools, not just like projections or ownership, but the boom bust, the top stack, the top pitchers tool, the lineup builder, ownership projections, player projections, you name it. Awesemo.com/join. You want to get in on that as well. You can do whatever your budget is, whatever your style of play, how serious you are. We got something for all of you. Milwaukee, Giannis Antetokounmpo is probable. That's essentially the only news that's pending here. And the assumption is that he's going to play. So is he the only viable player from Milwaukee tonight?
Pretty close, yeah. I mean, the next highest guy in terms of ownership projection right now on DraftKings is Middleton at 1.6%. We have Giannis at 12.7. I think Giannis looks good. I mean, assuming that Milwaukee's going to play to win games down the stretch, and assuming this game's relatively competitive because it's a 5-point spread, you can expect 35 minutes or so from Giannis. He's one of the best point per minute guys in the league. And the thing that's really nice with Giannis is that so far, every pay up guy we've talked about and been interested in, with the exception of Durant, has been a center or a guard. It's always nice when you can get pay up options at the forward spots, because typically the value at those positions just isn't as strong as it is at guard and as it is at center. So the opportunity cost is a little bit lower. You can just kind of build better lineups around that. So definitely really interested in Giannis at this price. Beyond that, very difficult to get to an $8,800 Holiday or $8,500 Middleton.
and I'm just going to throw this over to you because I got some interesting games coming up. I want to take some time on them. What about Chicago?
Kind of the same thing Chicago's been for a while. Individually, I think Vooch stands out at 7,700. The thing you have to keep in mind, though, is that it is a higher opportunity cost position. So, for example, we've already talked about Bam being a little bit underpriced at 7,900. I think Vooch is similarly underpriced at 7,700. DeRozan and Levine both look fine as well. I think they're more close. They're closer to correct than Vooch is, but all three of those guys are certainly playable. Patrick Williams' salary has come up to 3,800. He's likely to give you upper 20s in minutes again. Should be around a 0.7 fantasy point per minute guy. He's the kind of guy that I would be a lot more interested in if this slate had like 5 games instead of 12.
Washington headed over to where are they going? Minnesota. 234.5 total. Washington 12-point dogs. Kyle Kuzma remains out. Let's start with this first of all. There's gonna be, unless you disagree, and please let me know, there's going to be more value that opens up on this. It would be shocking if we don't get more news today. And I'm not just talking about the guys that are questionable. Like, it's not even 11 in the morning yet. There's going to be some stuff that comes out where you go, oh, okay, they're sitting everyone. Maybe not to that extent, but you know how this works on April 5th, Adam. So I don't know if Rui, despite a matchup against the fastest paced team in the league, in the Minnesota Timberwolves, who's defensively have actually played better lately. Give them some credit. I'm not sure that Rui is going to be a guy that's pulling 12%, 13% come lock, but maybe I'm wrong. He's so volatile.
Yeah, I'm with you. A lot of these Washington guys are players that on a slate of this size, if they're getting no ownership, I don't mind mixing and matching them into some lineups just because there's certainly opportunities there. And like you said, they're playing a very fast-paced Minnesota team. But if they are getting ownership, they're also volatile. Rui, like you said, could get 30 minutes and play really well and be a good play at 4,800. He also could play like 24 minutes, suck, and give up some minutes to, Anthony Gill or somebody. So there's a lot of volatility there. I think that he looks like a decent value, but if he is getting ownership, you can find similar guys. And also, there's just almost definitely going to be more that opens up throughout the day. Similarly, Denny Avdia at 5,300, Ish Smith at 4,100, Kispert at 42, Satoransky at 46. Like, these are all guys that if they play, like their 75th percentile, 80th percentile game, they're going to beat their salaries, but they're also pretty much priced correctly for their medians. So just getting to them here and there in lineups makes some sense, but I don't see myself really prioritizing any one guy. And then the only pay up option on this team, Porzingis, not on the injury report. I kind of thought that they would shut him down after the Dallas game, let him play that game and then go into tank mode. But so far that hasn't been the case. If he gets you 30 to 32 minutes, he certainly could have a big game here. So I do kind of like him in tournaments, but again, just difficult to be saying he's somebody I'm going to be jamming into a lot of lineups.
When it comes to Minnesota, you're getting D'Angelo Russell, whose price has come down considerably lately. Some of that just a reflection of his production, but he's played far more significant minutes over his last 2 games, both of which were close, both of which were insanely high scoring as well. It's just, from a shot volume standpoint, he's just been in this same channel where like he doesn't have a lot of there's not a lot of mobility when you look at just his overall usage and everything. He's kind of just become like an okay mid-range player, but can we even project him for those type of minutes again today? Because if so, I think 6,400 is reasonable. I just don't know what we can project him for in terms of playing time.
Yeah, I mean, I expect 30 to 32 minutes from Russell. I do think that at 6,400, he's pretty underpriced. It is worth noting that Patrick Beverley is not on the injury report today. He doesn't have an impact on Russell's usage, but it does, when he's out, you do get a bump in assist percentage for D'Angelo Russell. So Beverley expected back today. But at 6,400, just especially in a pretty favorable matchup against Washington, I think Russell is underpriced. Anthony Edwards more correctly priced, but certainly still has a high ceiling in the spot at 7,500. Beverly and Vanderbilt, I think, are both secondary options. Karl Anthony Towns, though, is another center that I think looks really good here. $9,500 price tag, likely to give you 34 to 35 minutes if this game's competitive. And I just don't really know what answer Washington has for him. Not that any teams really have an answer for him, but should be a fast-paced game. Price tags come down a bit. I do like Towns quite a bit.
Okay. And just to throw this out there, Timberwolves are 1.5 games behind the Jazz to sneak into that 6 seed there. So I don't know. Does that have something to do with what type of minutes we're looking at today? I guess you would have to just say no.
I mean, it should.
But it should. And that's what I'm saying. Like Russell was playing at 30, 31, 32. He's played 35 and 37 over his last 2 games. Edwards 35, Towns 35 last time out. I think it should. They have 3 games to go? They have 3 games to go. The Jazz have 4 games to go. So anything's possible, man. It's definitely a spot where you should be looking to sneak into that 6. And I think you could potentially project these guys, or at least Russell with the minutes he's played over the last 2, for a couple more minutes today.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I wouldn't go too crazy on a minutes projection for Russell is just that there are other factors, the game gets out of hand some percentage.
Oh, for sure. I'm not saying give him 36 or 35.
Right.
But
yeah, normally with Russell, I go 30, 31. Today, I'll probably be at 32 or
right.
33.
That's exactly what I was saying. But that can make a difference at 6,400.
Yeah, for sure.
Anybody else from Minnesota?
No, I think kind of all the starters look fine. I think Russell and Towns look like the top 2.
All right. Portland. I just despise talking about this team now. I really do. It's
oh my God, what a game. I didn't realize they were playing OKC.
Yeah. This is the game that went to overtime last week.
With 16 total players.
With 16 total players, 265 total points in that game. It's a fucking disaster. And I'm serious. When you look at a game like this, I understand that we see a lot of this stuff late in the season. And I won't say this is unprecedented, but this is definitely not even this. This is the type of tanking that takes it to an entirely different level. And then with OKC's in dire straits too. Well, they're not. They don't want to play anyone.
They choose to be.
They choose to be. But that's besides the point here. Are we going to Greg Brown or Ellaby or Drew Eubanks, who, give the man credit, has produced well with the expanded opportunity here, but the price has come up a lot as well.
Yeah, so the big change that we've seen with Portland compared to a week or 2 weeks ago, or two changes. For one, the prices have at least somewhat adjusted as you would expect, but they do have more bodies now. So last game, they ran a 10-man rotation. You had Reggie Perry, you have Didi Louzada back. So it's not to say nobody on Portland can do well here. They have a 109 total. They have a bunch of relatively cheap guys. They're playing OKC. It wouldn't surprise anybody if $4,400 Greg Brown does well, or you get a random, or you get a big game from Eubanks or something like that. But it's very, very difficult to prioritize anything from Portland on this slate, just because of the combination of rising prices and increased bodies in their rotation, I think. So Greg Brown, assuming he remains in the starting lineup, looks to me like the most appealing piece from Portland. Then I would say it's probably some combination of Eubanks or Brandon Williams. But this team just doesn't look nearly as appealing as it did, last time they played OKC.
Yeah, totally agree. And just look at the last 2 games. I know they've been blowouts, but nobody played 30 plus minutes against Brooklyn. Nobody got to 30 minutes. And then last game against the Spurs, which wasn't even a blowout until the end, midway through the fourth quarter, the only guys that got north of 30, Brandon Williams played 30 on the dot basically, and Drew Eubanks played around 32. This is a rotation right now that looks horrible. So I think you explained that well. There's really no need to dive much deeper into that. What about on the other side, though, with almost an equally shorthanded team in OKC? Pokusevski, Krejci, are these spots that we can still? I think Pokusevski is an obvious answer that we can get to, especially against Portland with these teams being so terrible, both of them.
Yeah, I agree. I think the OKC side looks a little bit better than the Portland side. 6,700 for Pokusevski looks pretty nice. 6,800 for Roby still looks fine. Beyond that, it gets kind of tough. $7,300 Teo Maledon, I think, is another one of these. Yeah, he could score 50, but he's also pretty much correctly priced for what you would expect from him on a game-to-game basis. Krejci probably would be more useful if the slate were a little bit smaller. Jalen Horde's price tag has come up to 4,300. So for the most part, this is another team where it's like, yeah, you get to them here and there. But I do think that Pogoshevsky and Roby, in particular, look like pretty useful pieces.
WS said, I wish we had a breakdown for the teams that still got to play. I'm sure the projections will reflect that, though. Yeah, and also that's why I said, like, we're going to talk about that. Some of these teams, if they need to play guys additional minutes, or if they have incentive to move up or get out of the play-in games, or whatever, just we'll definitely talk about that. He also said, hit that like. Good call, WS. Hit that thumbs up. We got 500 people watching. If you forgot, it is okay. We forgive you. Just make that quick correction. Only takes a second, and subscribe to the channel too. All right, let's go to Memphis and Utah. So the Memphis Grizzlies they're where there's zero chance they're moving, right? They're 7 games behind the Suns, and they're 5.5 up on the Warriors. And now they're going into a spot against the Utah Jazz, who the Jazz, Adam, legitimately need to win this game. Like I said, they're only a game and a half ahead of Minnesota for that 6th spot in the West. Surprising a little bit, but this is where we stand right now. So Memphis, all of those guys are off the injury report from last game, but Dylan Brooks is now doubtful, and John Morant obviously still out. But what does that do for them?
Another team that just sort of looks neutral across the board. Morant's been out for long enough where price tags have come up. Tyus Jones is finally at the 6K price point that I think I said he would be correctly priced at like 2 weeks ago. It took a very long time to get there. So he's just kind of neutral here. Desmond Bane certainly can see more usage without Dylan Brooks and, of course, without Morant. Same goes for Jackson, but they're both priced up. It's just a team where if one of these guys goes off and you're looking back at this slate tomorrow and it's like, oh man, Desmond Bane destroyed 7,400 or Jackson destroyed 7,300, you wouldn't be shocked, but you're also not going into the slate saying like, oh yeah, that's a super likely outcome where I'm going to build around it. So I don't know. It's another team that they have a lot of guys that look like not good, but not bad plays to me. Bane, Jackson, Jones, Adams, Melton, Clark, Anderson, like all of these guys are just sort of correctly priced, I think.
By the way, this team, man, like they go into Phoenix without Bane, without Morant, without Steven Adams. Who else were they without? Was Melton out too? Just a lot of these, I can't remember who else was out, but everybody was out, and they come in as 7.5 point dogs, and they just beat them outright by 8. Like without I still stand by. I don't think Memphis has the tools to get to the finals or win the championship. But what an impressive team! Like no matter who's out, they just win games and cover.
Yeah, they're good. They're one of those teams that I think is going to be hurt by the way that teams play in the playoffs. Because
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they're just so much deeper than other teams. But then in the playoffs, that doesn't matter because you're just playing, 42 minutes of the other team's best players.
Exactly. But credit to them. And who knows? Maybe I'll be wrong. What's up?
I said they're good. They just
I
think I think they are probably a year or two away from being like legitimately scary in the playoffs.
Agreed. You take nothing away from them though. Like they're second in a tough Western Conference. But still, if you looked at the odds for them to win the finals, they're probably like 8th or 9th best odds still,
Yeah.
Despite having the 2nd best record in the entire NBA. Anyway, Utah Jazz. Let's dive into the Jazz a little bit here. Is there anyone that benefits from the fact that they really need to get this win tonight? Like, go ahead.
I was gonna say Memphis is 8th.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, around 8th. Despite the 2nd best record in the league. That's checks out.
Yeah, and as far as the question about Utah, I do think you have some pretty nice pricing here. Like you said, they certainly don't want to end up in the play-in game, so they have every incentive to play real minutes. It's also at home, and we've talked about it a lot before. Not that we expect this game to blow out anyway, but Quinn Snyder does typically give his guys pretty decent fourth quarter minutes outside of like the biggest blowouts. So Donovan Mitchell at 8,600, I think looks good. No Dylan Brooks should be useful for him as well. I mean, we make fun of Brooks for his shot selection, but he can be really annoying on the defensive end. So I don't think, not that one individual player is swaying my my stance on Donovan Mitchell, but it doesn't hurt. So I think he looks good at 8,600. I think Rudy Gobert looks good at 8,100. He's another just underpriced center in that price range. Looks very similar to me to Bam Adebayo and Nikola Vucevic in that price range. After those two guys, I think there's a step back. $6,200 Conley is certainly has a ceiling. Same can be said for a 5K Bogdanovich or $5,700 Clarkson. But I think Mitchell and Gobert are the priorities here.
Trey Jones and the San Antonio Spurs without DeJounte Murray. A lot of ownership coming in on this game. They're 8.5-point dogs against Denver. Nice 234.5 total. You see the ownership projection on Trey Jones right now, but it's really difficult to argue anything like that because each time you get him as a starter, you're pretty much locking in, and I should be careful with this, but you're pretty much locking in a big minutes and a relatively productive game with solid peripherals across the board on a slate right now that doesn't have a ton of value, and him being at 4K in a high, like I don't see any way you'd really want to get away from Trey Jones right now before anything else happens, unless you're just trying to be insanely different. But if you could just get so much different elsewhere.
Yeah. And it's not like he's a bad point per minute guy either. He's not one of these, random backups being thrown into the starting lineup and you're just like praying he does well. I don't know how his salary came down. I think he was like 4,300 last game and now he's 4K. Pricing, one of the themes of the show so far has been that pricing's pretty tight. I don't know if DraftKings like made an effort because they have the 3K Millie today and they wanted to tighten things up or what, but we haven't seen a lot of, at least so far, a lot of guys that stand out as drastically underpriced, but Trey Jones is certainly one of them. You should be expecting him to play a lot of minutes here. He's a good point per minute guy, just wildly underpriced and stands out as one of the top plays on the slate.
Yeah, 0.95 with Murray and Derek White off the floor this year, which if he's playing 34, 35 minutes, you can live with that. All of the numbers check out, like you were saying. What's his assist rate with them off? It's got to be, 31%. Not bad. What about the rest of San Antonio, though, with Keldon Johnson, who will have those games where he just rips off like 7 threes. Lonnie Walker, who, if he's getting the minutes, is someone that's going to operate with pretty high usage. Any of those guys maybe not stand out, but make for pretty good secondary options and tournament pieces?
Yeah, I think there's a few of them because for one, like you're missing Murray. So obviously you have not only usage, but rebounding, assists, although those will mostly be picked up by Trey Jones, available. But also San Antonio is a team that has something to play for. They are holding off the Lakers so far, mostly because of the Lakers being horrible. But you shouldn't expect Pop to play games with the minutes. I think that there's, at least for me, like the first thing, it feels weird because it's like, oh, Murray is sitting. We're in April. Who knows what the Spurs are going to do with their minutes? But Murray's legitimately sick. They want to win this game. There's no reason to think if this game's competitive that you're not getting mid-30s from guys like Keldon Johnson, that you're not getting 32 minutes or so from Pirtle. So it makes both of those guys look like pretty solid secondary options in tournaments. You can say the same thing for Devin Vassell at 5,500. He's averaged 0.95 DraftKings points per minute in 455 minutes without Murray or White on the floor. Keldon Johnson's at 1.09. So yeah, I do think that, while Trey Jones is the one that really stands out, getting to some Keldon Johnson, some Pirtle, some Vassell, any of those guys look pretty good as well.
I don't think Lonnie Walker's crazy at 4K either. Maybe he only plays 24 minutes, but he has a 27.5% usage rate without Murray and White this year, just taking White off the floor. It's unlikely that he's going to break the slate for you, but we have seen those type of games where, because mind you, Lonnie Walker, was out for an extended period of time there, right? I can't remember how long he was out. I thought it was a while. Maybe it wasn't. No, it was probably just a couple games, but he returned. He was out for like 2 weeks. He came back. His minutes have been down a bit, but don't you think if Murray Walker, it comes out and just starts ripping off shots like we've seen him do in the past, that he might get additional minutes? Because we've seen Pop kind of provide him with that. Yeah,
I was going to say, like, the concern on Walker is that you have Josh Richardson playing real minutes. You have Primo essentially ahead of Walker, starting now. But to your point, if Walker comes out and he's shooting well, there's no reason that Pop wouldn't give him more minutes, assuming physically that he can play 27 instead of 24. I assume that's the case. But like if he's playing really well and he's shooting well, you do get some volatility there, and that's something that I know I've talked about before. I know Alex has talked about it, where in tournaments that type of volatility is really nice because if he's playing poorly, like if he plays 24 minutes and he's playing poorly, you don't really care because that lineup's going to suck anyway.
Right.
But knowing that if he's just knocking down shots left and right, he probably is going to get a few more minutes of that as well. It's certainly on a slate of this size still difficult to get to or to build around, but there is quite a high ceiling, I think, for Walker at 4K.
How about Denver? Nikola Jokic. So I think it was Alan that mentioned earlier that Jokic needs, what is it, like 72 points and 14 rebounds to be the first guy with this many points, rebounds, and assists in a season, like 2,000, 1,500 or something.
Yeah.
Take that into account today, Adam?
I mean, not today specifically, but well, it kind of doesn't matter for Denver anyway. Like everything's going to run through Jokic. They are the 5 seed, but it's not like they are locked in the seeding. So, it's not a situation where you have to have the conversation like, is Mike Malone going to throw Jokic a few more minutes to make sure he gets there? He's going to play his normal minutes anyway. He's going to be the guy that the offense runs through. So it doesn't really change anything for me. Like Denver's going to do what they do. He's probably going to get there. But it doesn't hurt, I guess, as far as incentives go. But it has nothing to do with why I think Jokic looks phenomenal here. Just a good spot against San Antonio. We know that Jokic is one of the best point per minute guys. He is a little bit more expensive than Embiid. I certainly pay attention to ownership between the two if you're trying to decide where to go, because I don't think there should be I don't think there should be a big gap. Right now, we have Jokic at 14% on DraftKings. We have Embiid at 12%. To me, that seems correct when you factor in that Embiid's a little bit less expensive, probably projects a little bit lower, but Jokic, obviously one of the best plays on the slate.
Anybody else for Denver?
Not really. Barton, Highland, both, if they land in a lineup here or there would be fine, but definitely guys that fall into that category of if this were a 5-gamer, I'd have a lot more to say about them, but on a 12-gamer, they're kind of just there.
Making sure there's no news here. All right, got a couple games to go here. So
another 10-day for OKC.
What's that?
OKC added another 10-day contract. So all that I have to say there is just keep an eye out for, because they'd added somebody else earlier today too. I don't remember the name, but just keep an eye out, because if they add 2 guys to the rotation, obviously this becomes a mess. But I don't think it would have too much of an impact on Pokusevski or Roby anyway.
How about them signing Jalen Horde the same day and then playing 40 minutes as a starter?
Yeah, that pissed me off, because it was like they announced him in the starting lineup and I had already gotten started on all of my stuff. So I was just like, yeah, it's Jalen Horde. I don't know. I don't feel the need to redo everything for this guy. And then he just plays 1,000,000 minutes and wins the slate.
40 minutes. I mean, that's crazy. Yeah. That's the thing though. There's no rhyme or reason to any of this shit anymore with teams like Portland or OKC at all. You can't predict that. You can't project how many minutes he's going to play because nothing means anything. All right. Hey, we're going to be doing some beta testing on new tools. If you want to get in on that action and also just have access to a ton of awesome or exclusive Awesemo discounts, and like I said, first crack at beta testing some of these new tools. We got some good, from what I've seen, we got some awesome ones coming up. All you got to do is just join the Awesemo MVP text program. Sign up by texting MVP to, I'm not reading this number, Jordan. Just throw it in chat, throw it on the screen. I guess, you know what, for podcast form, I guess it's fair, right? 1-660-656-4417. And you'll automatically be entered to win a year of Awesemo Plus Platinum on top of that. So check it out, or just click the link in the description, or the text the number, text MVP to it. But yeah, if you're looking to get some beta testing, if you're looking to do that for some of the new tools, want to maybe win an Awesemo Plus Platinum account and get exclusive Awesemo discounts, that's the way to do it. Text MVP to that number. All right, where are we at? Pelicans. Yep, Pelicans 8.5-point favorites against the Kings, 225 total. Right now, the only thing here is Jonas Valanciunas is questionable. So if he's out, we can discuss that. But you and I are going to be on the deeper dive tonight, doing all this all over again. So I don't really think we need to dive super deep into that. But from where it stands right now, what are you seeing in New Orleans?
Obviously, really good matchup for these guys. They kind of look like the Bulls typically do, where CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas, assuming he plays, all look good. They all look similar to each other. They look similar to a lot of the other plays that we've liked. For example, I think 8,500 for Joe Val is pretty comparable to 8,100 for Gobert or 7,900 for Bam. Probably prefer those guys a little bit more just because they're cheaper. But all three of those guys look good. And then assuming Joe Val's in, beyond them, I don't see much. Like if you get to a little bit of $3,400 Larry Nance, I think we do see his minutes ramp up a bit. Last game against the Clippers, he played 28 minutes. Granted, some of that was, or more of that was in the second half when Joval mostly wasn't playing. But even in the first half, you got about you got like 11 minutes in the first half from Nance. Even if he gives you like 22 to 24 minutes at 3,400, that's not a bad spot to be at. But in terms of priorities, I think McCollum, Ingram, and Joval, assuming he plays, look the best by far.
Sacramento, no De'Aaron Fox. I mean, this team again looking to lose here. Damian Jones has been sick, but I mean, you're not paying that price for him today. But the guy's been just putting up outside of last game, which was disappointing. He dropped back to back career high games from a fantasy standpoint. He's been in the league, dude, for like 9 years.
Has never come.
Really? What's that?
I didn't realize he'd been around. I didn't realize.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. I guarantee it's been at least like 6. Hold on. 1, 2. Oh, you know what? No, I'm dumb. No. 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah. So he's been like 6 years, 6 years. You know what it was? I just like took a cursory glance at, because I didn't think he'd been around that long either, at Basketball Reference. But so I just saw the list of teams, but I didn't realize that he was on like 3 teams last year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 3 teams last year, but 2016. Okay, so yeah, my fault. Anyway, by far, those were like the best games he's had as a pro, and he's definitely taken a ton of advantage of it. It's a good spot, but he is getting up there in price now. But credit to this guy; he's been balling recently.
Yeah, like he's a fantasy point per minute guy. He's been getting a lot of minutes as well. I don't know how much it would matter, but you probably want to pay attention to Alex Len's status, just as far as if he's even going to be there to back him up. He's been out the last couple of games, but even the game before that, I think Len barely played, so not entirely confident Len's even in the rotation. And so you've been getting 30 plus minutes from Damian Jones. He's playable, but like you said, the price tag's adjusted enough to where there's a lot of centers that I think look a little bit better. Sort of the same situation with like Davion Mitchell at 7,900, with Barnes at 6,200. Basically this whole team, it's a spot where there's plenty of opportunities, but they've been without Sabonis and Fox for a while now. So you have Mitchell priced to play 38 minutes and average a fantasy point per minute. You have, Barnes priced to play 34 minutes at around 0.9 fantasy points per minute. There's just not a lot that stands out to me from the Kings, even though there are a lot of opportunities to go around.
Ready to wrap this one up?
Yeah, God, that means talking about the Lakers.
Yeah, Lakers 11.5 point dogs in Phoenix, 231.5 point total. We mentioned it earlier, but they are right now, 2 games out of the 10 seed?
Yeah. And facing the Suns in Phoenix.
Yeah, what a disaster. But here we are, and we got to talk about it. The Lakers, huge dogs. Davis and LeBron, both questionable to play. You have to assume they're in, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think LeBron is like really, really, really hurt. But
like, and even when he plays, he's hurt, you're saying? Like, you think he's playing hobbled?
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know what to do with that for DFS. At 11-2, I think that I would just be getting to a lot of other guys anyway. But as far as just like guessing if he's in, like normally, like if I thought this was like the bullshit, LeBron always questionable, then obviously he would play in this game. Right. But I think he's really injured, and it's just a matter of like, can he play? But for now,
dude, he's been in the league for what? How many years now has LeBron been in the league?
I mean, he was drafted when I was in like 8th grade, so a lot.
Yeah, and he's 3rd in the entire league in minutes played per game this year.
Right.
I know he's missed games, but still, like, dude, he's playing 40 minutes a night right now.
Yeah. I guess the thing, and it doesn't really even have to do with DFS. There's just been so many like, oh, LeBron's soft. He's not even out there playing in must wins. Like, I feel like we're gonna get the news as soon as the season's over that LeBron's undergoing like surgery.
It's very possible. But hey, no, remember when everyone called us crazy for saying maybe there was something more to those tweets? I don't know.
What tweets?
When he like did the angry face emojis and everyone's like, dude, it's just one game. He's fine.
Oh, yeah.
And he's been missing a lot of games since then. I think different injuries, but I don't know. Dude, look, the body, as much of a cyborg as that dude is, you're not going to hold up forever. It's amazing that he has been able to play 40 minutes at this level for as long as he has. It really is. It's remarkable. Like, have we ever seen anything like it?
Anybody playing this well at his age?
Like at this many minutes for this many years.
Oh, I doubt it.
I can't, like, people will mention Tom Brady, but and it's just, that's apples to oranges. And I give Tom Brady, the world in terms of credit, but Tom Brady they've done a pretty good job of protecting that dude. And I'm not saying that LeBron's some fragile guy that can't take contact, even though he will cry about it. He's held up exceptionally well. It's crazy. Is there anything go ahead?
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Anything else for the Lakers, or do we want to wrap this up with Phoenix?
Anthony Davis deserves a mention just because he is 9K. He played like 35 minutes last game. There's no real reason to think that he's limited here. If LeBron is out in particular, Davis starts to look really good, I think. But even if LeBron's in, you can throw Davis into the mix of pretty strong center options. Other than that, I don't really see much here. Davis also is questionable, though, so keep that in mind. I mean, to me, Davis is more of... I feel more confident Davis plays than LeBron plays.
Okay.
Which
Anthony
feels
Marcus
absurd
said,
to say.
Anthony said, LOL, Brady is a quarterback with a laughing emoji. I know, but anytime you have this conversation, it's guaranteed that people will bring up Brady as a, direct comparison, a direct comp to LeBron in terms of longevity. And it's just, that's why I said it doesn't make any sense. All right. Phoenix, wrap this up, man. We got to get out of here.
Really, really good spot for the Suns. You have Booker back. Yeah, Booker back, not on the injury report. Nobody on the injury report that matters. So it's, I don't know, it's a team where there's certainly a high ceiling, but also I think pretty much correct pricing, sort of reminiscent of those Bulls teams that we talk about every day. Devin Booker, 9,300, Paul, 8,200, Ayton, 7,100. Very good spot for all of those guys. Not prioritizing them in the sense of getting to them and getting to any one of them individually in a really high percentage of lineups. But at the same time, DeAndre Ayton's projected for 7% ownership. Booker and Paul are both at 4%. Certainly guys that you can use in a lineup that is otherwise chalky to still get a very high ceiling.
Yeah. All right. It's always funny to me that people, just because you say something good, I am not a big fan of the LeBron James personality, but to act like, where is it? There it is. Miguel, Jordan played these minutes all the time. Stop with the LeBron hype train.
Jordan had retired twice by now.
Yeah. LeBron's been in the league for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. This is 19th season. His 19th season, and he's averaging 37 minutes per game. I don't think it's inappropriate to say that is pretty spectacular in terms of a feat when you're an NBA player.
And was Jordan still retired at 37, or was he on the Wizards by that point?
I don't remember. I don't know. I can tell you. So Jordan was born in 63 and he joined the Wizards in 01.
Yeah, so in Michael Jordan's age 37 season, he was in his third year of retirement. And then he played at 38 and 39 for Washington.
Right. Yeah, and he
was not particularly good.
Averaged 20 points per game with I think his shooting was pretty bad, wasn't it?
Yeah. 42% effective field goal percentage at
and
38
45.
and 45 at 39.
Yeah. But again, this will just be like assuming that Jordan, And look, dude, just the advancements from like a medical standpoint, or from being able to keep athletes in the peak condition. I don't think you can overlook that stuff from like now to back then, but it doesn't take away from LeBron either.
Yeah, and now we're getting into the whole like, for one, no, LeBron is not playing in a softer league. He's playing with a bunch of guys that are bigger, stronger, faster. But like, there's also the like, yeah, Jordan played more minutes per game. They were standing around playing half court offense the whole game. Like they weren't. It wasn't the same fast paced game. But then in Jordan's favor, you have the sports medicine stuff. Like, yeah, obviously LeBron's able to take care of his body better than Jordan was, just because of advances in technology. So it's not, none of this is apples to apples. It's just saying Jordan played this many minutes for just as long is insane, considering that he was on year 3 of retirement for the second time.
Right. He said, because he was good. What are you talking about?
Dude, I'm a Wizards fan. He was not good.
LeBron's in his 19th season. He has a 59% effective field goal rate. Jordan was at 45 in his last. I'm not saying that's like the only indicator here, but yeah.
Yeah, when Jordan came back for the third time, he played like a dude that used to be really, really good at basketball and then now is just old and like whatever. LeBron is still playing like one of the best players in the league at 37 without taking a break.
Correct. Now, granted, his team sucks.
Sure.
But he's still playing pretty well. All right. Anyway, not bad. Not bad. Got in, got out. Dude, what are you? The truth said you can't argue with someone who has a platform, even if you're making good points, you lose. No, you guys started this argument. All I said was
good points, maybe you'd have a platform.
What?
I said if they made more good points, maybe they'd have a platform.
Maybe. All I said is it's impressive. That's the problem, dude. Like, oh, it's impressive. I don't think anyone's done this before. No, Michael Jordan. Jordan.
Like, for once, I didn't even I said nothing bad about Michael Jordan, and it still turned into a thing.
Well, hey, it's been fun, guys. Hit that thumbs up. We'll see you back here tonight for the NBA Deeper Dive, Locks Before Lock, Live Before Lock, all of that good stuff. And of course, you've got the PGA Strategy Show with Ben and Jeff coming up today for the Masters. That's at 1 p.m. You have the No House Advantage Strategy Show at 3:30. All of that fun stuff right here on the channel. Appreciate you. We'll see you back here soon. Peace.